to this. Hello, hello, and welcome. So we have our editor monthly meeting. We start off right away, and I'll hand over the first parts all to Eric. And I'm quiet and listening in.
Thanks. Yeah. So I have to drop a little bit early. So I asked Roman to flip it around and let me have my time up front, but I'll try and be brief, and then I'll try and dial in on the way to pick up my kid. Editor naming. Thanks for your feedback and consideration in the issue. And I clarified that we are indeed the DRI for this, and I think it's just necessary to pick a direction and go. So after great consideration and all of your wonderful feedback, I have decided that editor light shall hereunto be named source editor, and rich text editor we can refer to as content editor. Neither of those is 100% perfect fit. I know there's still a little bit of ambiguity there, but I think they're complementary enough and distinct enough that we can move forward with those. If you have severe reservations, or if like that translates to something inappropriate in your language or something like that, then please let me know and we can revisit. But for now, I think we should sit with that decision and move forward. We can work on updating epics and documentation, and I'm about to do some direction page rewrites. So I'll probably create a direction page for each of these, even though they're not formal categories, just to outline our vision for them now that we have a name. Cool. So I'll try and catch myself also, try and lead by example and call them the proper names. In chatting with Roman, I believe in one of our one-on-ones, I was encouraged to hear some feedback coming from you all, the engineers that is, that you were enjoying a level of autonomy and like the ability to propose solutions and come up with technical approaches without feeling like they were being dictated to you or handed to you for implementation. And so on that, in that discussion, I kind of outlined a few of my thoughts and thought maybe it'd be good to share with you. But I think that I'm encouraged to hear that, and I would have been very upset to hear anything else other than that, because as far as I'm concerned, as a PM, I'm only responsible and only interested in delivering value to our customers. So as I think about planning and iteration, that's the mindset I'm, that's how I frame these decisions and how I frame the issue writing and everything. It's always derived from the value that we're going to deliver. And I think about an easy mechanism might be, how am I going to write about this? Or how would I talk about this in a release post? So I am not as interested and have no preconceived notions about how we implement any of these things. And I don't think I should. So hopefully I'm never pushing too hard for a certain technical architecture or approach. If I am, please check me on it or help me learn why that's not right, because I might just be misguided. This is why you all were hired and why you're experts. We have a very senior level of expertise in this group, and rightly so. We have some very big problems to solve, and I want to let you have the room you need to solve them. And that said, I'm also very much in favor of making the time necessary to plan out our technical approaches or do the investigation that you need to build it the right way the first time. But I would say I also don't really love hand-wringing and so just trying to kind of being paralyzed by multiple options and not picking one. So I think we do have to, and I find myself doing this, so I'm probably the one in the group that's going to do this the most. see also the naming of the editors. So I think we should really embrace our bias towards action value. And I also firmly believe that we will end up shipping more. We will move faster if we consider our options, pick one, and validate it. And if we discover early on that we made the wrong decision, we move back on this. This is also how I think about sunk cost fallacy in the work we do. And I don't think that there's any shame in bias towards action in this regard. And that's just how I feel. So again, if that gives you some level of comfort in your planning or autonomy or independence in your decision making, then that is probably that's the desired outcome. This I put in here because I don't think this really came across in any of my previous like rants about product management, but we all succeed together, right? There's no individual success here on the team. Like you all are individually successful and you may get promotions, and I hope you all do, but we are succeeding as a team in the eyes of GitLab and in the eyes of our customers. We should celebrate those accomplishments, and we have our team day coming up soon. Hopefully we will be able to do that in a more formal way. I'm not here to take any credit for any of your work or accomplishments, but I am here to take responsibility for anything that may go wrong, or our actions or our decision-making process. So think of me as the one who's gonna hopefully deflect the blame if something goes wrong, but certainly lift you up as things go right and give you the credit you deserve. A lot of PMs find that part of the job difficult, but I actually don't love the spotlight. So it fits really well for me. And last, I really like data. We talked about this a bit in our last backlog refinement session. I'm always going to advocate for getting instrumentation into features and learning actual data about how people are using our features, but I'm struggling to figure out how it works here at GitLab still. And I'm over a year in. I still can't wrap my head around sisense and usage pings sometimes. So if I'm ever vague in my requirements for tracking, it's just because I don't know. And you can feel free to ask me to elaborate or give me suggestions of how to do it better. Please do. So it's just some high level, check in on my product management style. And I'm glad to hear that at least some of you, I don't know who gave this feedback. I don't want to know, but I'm glad to hear at least some of you know that you have this autonomy and are appreciating it.
We appreciate you, Eric.
Thank you. I take no credit for being appreciated.
As far as the, go ahead.
No, I was gonna say, Roman, when I'm late on status updates, I'm gonna blame Eric now.
You should.
I'm joking.
You absolutely should.
No, thanks, Eric, and I really appreciate your approach to PMing. Has been really encouraging, so and inspiring. So I appreciate it, Eric. What were you gonna say, Chad? Sorry, I interrupted.
I was gonna say, as far as metrics, and again continuing the discussion yesterday, I've done sisense. It can be complicated, but it doesn't have to be. I'd like to step back and especially work with Eric and Michael and Catherine to get a bigger picture of like what do we want to do around experimentation and metrics and data gathering. What's important to you? What is the directions you have in mind? And try to help you do that, because the short dive, which we cut short luckily on the experimentation framework, like only proved to me like we need to have a very clear plan of what we want before we try to do anything.
Yeah, absolutely. And I fully intend to outline more I don't know, maybe a more concise ask for like what data is important to me, and put these into epics and issues for each of our categories so that we can chip away at our data backlog and instrument where we need to and build dashboards where we can. And I want to be able to help out there. My SQL is very rusty, but I'm willing to learn.
My gut tells me it's possible we just don't have the hypotheses that we want to test. Like, I know that in the web IDE world, we're not in hypothesis land. We're in, technical debt, fix things land. And there's not a lot of, we need to try to disprove some hypothesis we have. And I think once we find ourselves asking those questions, then I think it's going to be really obvious what data we want. But until then, I would say let's avoid trying to push a square peg through a circle hole. Let's wait till we have the actual problem that data would be appropriate for.
Right. And that's what I was saying too. Like, I would.
Yeah, that makes a lot of sense, Chad.
Don't even worry about the SQL. Like, I'm glad to help you figure out how to do it in Scisense, but I'd love to hear from you and the designers, like, what problems are you trying to solve? What hypotheses are you testing? What data do you want to help you with that? And then I would love to help you figure that out.
Yeah,
Without
appreciate it. I will hold you, certainly hold you to that. And also that is definitely on my list to make that more clear, build up a nice little backlog of data requests. Starting to do that a little bit on some of the wiki, some of the wiki data that I've been looking into, but we'll have more to come. So shifting gears away from sort of meta team discussions, strategically, we have not a shift in our strategy update, but it's starting to sort of solidify around a few different tracks. And so I wanted to just check in on what the next, maybe 6 months looks like. So it's probably no surprise to some of you, but we've got over the next 2.5 release, we're almost done with 13.10. So 2 releases in a few days, we've got really 3 main tracks that are forming. So we are probably putting 60% of our time into settings and navigation to bring some really meaningful work over the finish line and realize some of the great research that Michael and Catherine have been doing to consolidate the top navigation menus and reorganize and give a facelift to the left navigation. I think both of those are very problematic for our users. They have clear UX wins, and we're very excited about those. It still, to me, feels realistic to aim for 14.0 to wrap up this work, but yeah, per the next bullet point, it's an ambitious goal. So just keep that in mind. And then also the third track is getting an MVC of our content editor in the wiki. And that, again, is ambitious, but it's very meaningful work and it's very exciting work. I think the impact it could make is one of the larger themes in general over the next year. So I'd really, really love to see the MVC land strong, and the wiki is a great place to do it. So those are the 3 main themes. Anything else like bug fixes and UX fixes and security bugs will slot in as needed, but for the foreseeable future in the next couple of releases, would really like to stay focused on those 3 things. I do, just again, per the top half of my conversation and my PM style, want to say, like, I'm not drawing a line in the sand saying you have to work nights and weekends to ship this work by 14.0. Please don't push yourself too hard. I understand it's ambitious, but it feels like an appropriate milestone to make such big changes. So if there's any indication that that's at risk, raise the flag now. We'll try and make things smaller, and at worst, we'll reset expectations and push it out. Moving on after 14.0 though. Oh, sorry. Any questions about those 3 tracks, I guess, before we move on?
I think maybe reorganizing and redesigning the left nav seems very significant.
It can be, yeah. We want to make reasonable steps towards it. And we were actually just talking with Fran about this yesterday in the backlog refinement session. I think we want to be smart about which things we move around for both the technical complexity of like how things are wired up with permissions and visibility and things like that, but also just the overall impact. So I think to people's workflows, there are other groups working on breaking up their categories, like operations is working on making their menu into 2 menus, I believe. There's a few concrete proposals for moving things around. And then there's just generally facelift and sort of UX, UI improvements that we can make regardless of where the items are and what the information architecture is. So I think we're going to try and tie together mostly skewed towards the front end and information. The UX, UI, but tackling a few of the low-hanging fruit for the information architecture with an eye towards something else coming up, which is like a more holistic framework to redo the left nav and make it more scalable.
Is how disruptive is it to the end user, do you think?
We don't want to do it every milestone. I think we don't want to like shift things around, and because you're going to build spatial recognition and not ever settle in. But there are items that are clearly in the wrong place. So I think as long as it makes sense, people will adjust. And if we let the dust settle for at least a few milestones before we make any other massive changes, I think we'll be okay.
Okay, cool. No, that sounds really neat. Sounds ambitious, but that's good.
And continuing on with our ambitions, so the 14.0 release will be a big one, but obviously we won't stop there. 14.1 will come up very quickly after we celebrate the wins of 14.0. And so the next quarter, really the next 3 releases there, I'm starting to think about what we might pay attention to. And I think for me, it'll be continuing to iterate on the content editor to fully support all the different GitLab flavored Markdown extensions and really build a fully featured editor. I don't know if that's achievable by 14.3. I'm not drawing a line in the sand again, but I'm just saying, like, I think that'd be a focus for that quarter. I think it would be fantastic if in the process we found another location to put the content editor, whether that's in the repo view in the single file editor, like if you open a Markdown file, we show it there, or maybe it's in snippets in the same scenario, or it could be that we're ready to put it in issue description, MR descriptions. We obviously wouldn't do that until we're very confident, but we'll see how fast it progresses. And then I think we don't want the source editor, formerly known as editor light, to languish. So we would start giving some attention back to that and push that maturity forward. I think there's a lot of opportunities to extend that in, and I listed something here, but I think we can plan this together and figure out what the most meaningful ones are, most impactful ones, whether that's the toolbar or in context editing or what. So let's keep that in mind as something post 14.0 that we'll want to pick back up. And then, as I mentioned, the left nav, Fran had a comment that was very encouraging during editor refinement that aligned pretty well with how we were thinking about settings, which was, what if the settings were represented by data files, and we could take those data files and build the settings views out of that. It'd be a lot more flexible. Well, and similarly to how a framework has been built for Geo that allows people to self-serve, which Fran also just did for our group wikis and did it very quickly. So we've seen that it works internally. Given that we or whoever ultimately owns settings in nav will not want to be the gatekeeper for changes to the left nav, it would be great if we could build a framework that was a little less fragile and a little more consistent. And we could potentially learn from an effort focused on the left nav and apply that to the settings work further into the 14.x milestones. So I think that we can start doing some planning and technical exploration over the next couple milestones, and maybe move forward with a data-driven left nav in the early 14s, which would be very exciting. And it'd be a great way to demonstrate our approach to solving the navigation problems, which is we want to build the right frameworks and patterns and then make people self-sufficient. And yeah, Dennis, thanks for adding the epic for editor light maturity. I think we could probably in the next month or so sit down in a sync meeting and just really talk through editor light maturity plans. I think it's long overdue to just like sync up on all that. And yeah, after that, it's a little nebulous, like plans change. It's kind of pointless to make too many specific changes, plans for what we're doing after that. But I think we have an opportunity starting in 14.4 to shift our focus to that concept that we've been talking about with the wiki and rebuilding as a static site, and what the convergence of the static site editor and wiki might look like, whether there's an opportunity to take a more mature content editor and put that into some kind of static site driven wiki-like experience and build that into the product to address a lot of the shortcomings of our wiki, while also delivering like a more flexible knowledge base platform within GitLab. This is going to take probably the better part of a quarter for me to wrap my head around, get alignment, probably do some validation, you know, opportunity canvas needs to be presented. We need to do competitive analysis and all that. So probably wouldn't kick off until, I don't know, what's 14.4 map to month-wise? That's like end of the year, right? What are we, 6? Yeah, it's like fall, end of fall. But I think we can look forward to that. I'm very, very excited about that. And then, yeah, settings. If we learn a lot, August. Okay, well, it's quicker than I thought. I don't know. I don't even know what month it is. It's March, right?
It's been March for a year.
It's been March for a year. Yeah. So, what does somebody say? March 375th or whatever. And then, yeah, I think we can take the lessons learned on the data-driven left nav and really work on that componentization of settings. I think that's a really impactful bit of work, but it's going to take a lot of planning and validation. If we do decide to go in that direction, I think it would be great to kick off those streams in parallel, you know, have part of the team working on the new handbook, wiki, knowledge-based product, and then the other part working on cleaning up our settings.
So does that mean at the end of the year they're finally going to decide on a DRI for the handbook and it'll be yes?
Yeah, probably, right? So it'll be, and we'll get settings because we'll have, we'll just get it permanently, right? And hopefully, you know, another 5 engineers. I don't know. I just made up that number, but I wouldn't turn down 5. 5 more of the talented engineers like you.
That's how rumors get started. Eric said we're hiring 5 more engineers.
We're getting 5 more. That's what I heard. 5 more senior.
Who do you think the 5 people will be?
Okay, that's my rant. It's always far too long. Any questions on the strategy stuff? Is there like a feature or category that you feel is not getting its due attention in this plan, or should we, are you do you think there's more value to be had somewhere that's not being tapped? Just an open question.
Are we gonna meet to define what the MVC of the content editor looks like?
Like visually, what it looks like, or just
Yes, and in
feature-wise?
terms,
Yeah.
in terms of picture,
Yeah. Let's do that. Let's sync up soon. I know Michael was doing some planning for solution validation on the editing experience itself, and whether or not we should do a block type editor or a toolbar based editor in the wiki, and the user experience would probably be defined by the outcomes of that. And then we can certainly talk about like what features make the cut and like what our success criteria for the MVC is. Let's schedule that as soon as possible. I'll try and get something on the calendar maybe for next week or early the following week, because we have Friends and Family Day next week, so it could be a little compressed.
So as far as docs, we're still responsible for that, but do you just see it in a holding pattern and we don't have to do anything?
Wouldn't say we don't have to do anything, but it's something where we're just going to have to find the time. We can't dedicate major streams of work to it. It's like in our matrix of percentage of time spent, it's in the 0 to 5% range every milestone. So as things come up, we'll try and slot it in. It is important, obviously. We want to keep that category moving forward. But yeah, it's not our primary focus.
I also want to say to your previous point about your PM approach, I really appreciate the opportunity to trust us to tackle technical debt when it matters. That's so important for the long-term success of a team in so many ways.
To piggyback on that, the web ID is suffering, but it's suffering valiantly, but it is suffering. And we have an epic that's been around for a while to address the root of this issue. And I think with Hamachu and a lot of the other people that have been, and Dennis that have been aware of this, we've made small payments on this debt to where I think we can address some of the root problem of redoing how we do our staged changes so that it's actually reliable and doesn't have weird user quirks. So I would say the web ID is not in a lovable state, and I think
I agree.
I think that there is I think in a couple of milestones it could be though. We could have it where the user experience is quite reliable, and so having attention on that would be really nice. I'm have a priority 3 bug I'm working on this milestone with a weight 2, but just to deal with that, it's requiring taking spaghetti balls out and just peeling out the noodles we really need. And so we really need to have a flag on web IDE, just the state it's in, because it's not a lovable state for developers or a lovable state for users. And I think it's really possible to get there. And I'm hoping this milestone, this is a common theme. I'm addressing one problem, but rather than doing the quick fix, I'm trying to do the real fix, and it fixes 5 other ones that were more severe than we realized. So that's no, and I appreciate where you're coming from as a PM, because this gives me the liberty to do that. So that's I think the web ID would be cool if it was one to be more lovable, but that's just bringing awareness there.
Yeah, absolutely. And I appreciate that approach. Like fixing 5 things by addressing one is always something I like to see. And negative lines of code in an MR is always great. I think the visual of you pulling a noodle out of a giant ball of spaghetti is something that'll get me through the day. So thank you for that. And I think you bring up a good point. And I think web ID maturity plan that that builds on our strategy for maturing the source editor with an eye towards addressing technical debt in the state management, in the just left sidebar in general, and making it more resilient and polishing up the UX around like the commit flow and the diff view and stuff like that would definitely be a candidate for like the next 6 months.
I have a question. I totally second what Paul just said, and I saw that Magic was that he references. It's not really like taking the bowl of spaghetti. It's like picking out spaghetti out of the tagliatelle dish. It's kind of challenging. But in general, I would like to. I see WebID now in our plan for 14.1, 14.3, but what I'm missing personally is the clear understanding of where WebID goes. Like with Kai being the PM, we've got some shaking, like some unstable message. At least I've got where it wasn't clear whether WebID is here to stay or it's going to be like with all this code sandbox. Well, not code sandbox, but like what do we use? Like
Gitpod.
Yeah, Gitpod. With all that thing, like I would like us to have the clear picture on the WebID's WebID as a product and its place in the overall product. Like where does it go? Where do we want to be with WebID in a year? Like what are we building? Whether we build it, whether we just maintain it, whether we gradually kill it, like what is the plan? That would be very important to know for the whole team, I think, and that plan would directly affect our plans on the state cleanup and all these things, and it's like priorities wise.
Great question, and I would say like I don't have a concise vision established yet, and I know I need to work on that. I need to do a little more research. I need to revisit the discussion on these, server-based runtime evaluation kind of products and whether or not we should be revisiting that. That is an open question, but I will say right now, my intent is not to shut down WebID or even let it languish, even deprioritize it. I think it's a core aspect of the platform and it should get the attention it deserves. I think we can make it better, even if it doesn't serve 100% of our users. We can work towards answering and coming up with a stronger opinion about whether or not we want like server-based evaluation and like a container and piping data from the web IDE back and forth or something like that. We need to do more research and validation from the business side. I mean, I know that we've done like a year's worth of research in the past before I joined, but learning from the Gitpod integration is the strategy, not using Gitpod to replace the web IDE, if that's probably the most concise way I can put it. I do have to drop, but I will be back in like 5 minutes to listen on my car.
Thank you, Eric.
Yeah, thanks.
I just think that we will have to like take our group's web ID page and just like put all our vision into this page so that everybody is on the same page and we could reference other team members to that page. But yeah, thanks for explaining this, Eric. Thank you.
Cool. Thanks for bringing it up, Denise. Good point. All right.
The one thing I wanted to say on technical debt, and Eric left, but I personally feel it's important to address technical debt organically, to not try to set aside releases for it, because then you tend to focus on things that aren't necessarily as important in driving it. Like, I like them to be driven by something you're trying to do or some feature. But having said that, in an area like the web IDE, where it's just like there's a ton of technical debt, that approach breaks down a little bit because like you have a really low velocity on getting anything done because you're always cleaning up technical debt.
That's exactly the case. Like whenever you try to do something like more or less significant in WebID, you really need to try and levitate all that technical debt that really like technical debt in general stands in a way, right? But in case of WebID, it just like stands in your way and just slaps you in the face, and it's just like, you know, if we try to, like, for example, the poll is switched off now, but in case of Paul's merge request now, like the merge request itself is more or less like straightforward. But in order to get to this straightforward decision, like he had to push the MR with like, just like, let me just take a look with plus 178 minus 390 lines of code of cleanup in order to get to the straightforward decision. So it's like the problem is that not tackling technical debt in WebID organically is very challenging because it really affects the planning and proper weighing of the issues. Like as Paul said, the issue itself is weighted 2, but like in order to deliver those 2, we need to deliver like 5 weights of technical debt, and that's the main issue, and it makes things really complicated when one tries to deliver any new feature or maintaining an existing feature in WebID, and it just puts pressure on the ICs.
That's why it's called debt, because it compounds over time.
Yeah, exactly.
And this debt has been there a long time, so it's big.
And I think like there's like different kind of technical debt, right? And in this case or so, I always like find it very much like to the user value that we want to create. And in this case, or so on the WebID, like there's like really currently the issue that like our state management, for example, is like really not working. So there's a lot of value that we could create for our users that we just don't, because like the technical debt is actually preventing us creating this value. So by paying off this debt, we actually start creating this value. So it's like super worthwhile investment. But fixing the state, suddenly like 50 things that were not working before are working now because we paid off the debt and fixed these things kind of unavoidably in the process, then it is like super worthwhile investment. And I think like Eric and myself were totally on the same page here and like super supportive of this. The balancing act is like always like to balance it with all the other business needs that a company has and all the other things. Like we're a small team with kind of a lot of goals and a lot of kind of like responsibilities right now. Like just finding the right timing in doing so. But
I think it's also, I'm sorry to interrupt you, Roman, but I just think that it's very important to mention that actually all those thoughts about abandoning WebID or like getting rid of it, like they partially came from the idea that velocity of developing new features for WebID is very low, and the velocity is very low exactly because of technical debt. It's just like in general, I do agree that tackling technical debt organically is a good approach. But when it comes to WebID, it's sometimes it's questionable whether it's more of a features or technical debt project. Yeah. So in this particular case, technical debt for WebID has to be dealt with exactly as any other feature would be.
Absolutely, I see.
So I appreciate that Roman and Eric are on the same page with regarding this, and hopefully we can fix this, especially if we plan to keep WebID and go on with it and make it a better product.
Yeah.
I think spam is a good example of this because like out of the working group, they came up with a list of dozens of places in the app that are vulnerable to spam. And we're like currently protecting 1.5 maybe. And the work that me and now IP's helping me a lot with it is making it so that each of those is not going to take like a couple of days to almost a week. It's going to be like one line, like one line on the back end and one line on the front end, and take no time. So investment is worth it.
100% agree. I need to fully confirm this with Eric, of course, but like I don't see that the WebID is going anywhere. it's like just I think like the vision diverges from kind of what like was previous division, and now the vision is for Web IDE. And I think like just where we want to bring the Web IDE as like an integral part of your GitLab workflow and how you operate everything, like this makes so much sense, right? We just need to focus on the right things. We cannot hunt for the wrong things by saying, okay, we want to create like your next Gitpod integration or Gitpod product. Like this is clearly cannot be our goal because like our team is like way too small for this or something what we want to do. But there's like so much potential for Web IDE if we kind of use it right and kind of do the proper things with it. And there's like so much value we can create away from like just completely replacing your editor space. And I think that this is the thing where we just like need to settle down, define the path very clearly ahead. And this is where we're jumping on it.
Also with the source editor driving Web IDE now, it opens the door to so many opportunities to like live previews and like all sorts of cool things that were really complex to implement in Web IDE previously.
It's a different market space than Gitpod. Like Gitpod is cool, but I don't want to wait 10 minutes before I can start editing my code. Like I want to edit it now. And I don't want to check it out locally. I just want to edit it now.
That's what I do with my local Ruby mine. Like I'm waiting while it indexes all the things, and she's like, I'm just falling asleep while it does this. So for me, it would not be no difference.
GitLab just keeps getting bigger and bigger.
So we want to do something more similar to Code Sandbox then, right? But we still want to do something where we can like build an artifact from the source that we are editing.
Yeah, I think that's a good comparison. Like, we don't want to build the new VS Code. We want to build the new Code Sandbox. Apparently, that would be more like aligned, and it's like it makes sense because we have to appreciate what web platform gives to us and use it for our benefits instead of like trying to replicate the desktop application on the web.
Cool. Thanks for this good discussion or so. And it seems like we're all visually kind of like aligned, which is nice. We just now need to wait for Eric to kind of whip it into proper words and sell it to the upper management. Should be good. Cool. Sake of time, I want to use like quickly the time to jump on some EM updates. One thing in general, as kind of mentioned previously, I want to give everybody like a more general like stat update as well as part of this one. So first of all, our say-do ratio for the last milestone for 13.9 was this is like 82%. And that's like amazing. That's amazing. There's another number in there like with 70%, which kind of takes away like work that kind of slipped in and was kind of repurposed or so, which is like totally fine. So I don't really care for this number because sometimes we just plan differently for the work that we do. 82% is like amazing. So good job, everyone. Very much appreciated.
What is the target? 100?
The target is like, or do you mean on the company level?
On this, the say-do, like what?
I would say like the baseline or so teams are aiming for is between like 70-75%.
Okay.
And us kind of reaching at 82%, we're above like the expectancy or so by a good number, which is nice. Cool. Narrow MR rate, we're at 10 MRs per engineer for the last month. This is also super good. Unchanged from the previous months or so. So good, making good progress on this one. Thanks, everybody.
I would like to thank everybody who contributed more than 10 merge requests previous milestone, because I definitely was under that number. So thank you to anybody, everybody who pushed more than 10 merge requests. Thanks.
Yeah, thank you, whole team. Very nicely said, Denise. And then quick check-in on the OKRs. Where we stand right now, we're at like 17% of progress so far when it took like the last calculation at the beginning of March. There's like some other good things and updates coming in or so. So I expect we make kind of a good update over the course of March, and there's like something else kind of changing the number or will be added. But overall, I think we're on a good track regarding the OKR. So thanks everybody for chipping in on this. Cool. And then I just want to kind of talk a little bit about our kind of a work approach and so very much based on like what Eric said, right? We're going to topics of autonomy and everything. We talked about it, and it seems so far that like the collaboration aspect of our work that we're doing is like having really positive impact on the outcomes of the thing of our results and what we deliver. So this is like amazing. And I think we just like deliver really good things, but like more nuanced feedback or so I would totally love to have in the retro. The retro is already like open and prepared for everybody to drop in their feedback about this. But on that base or so, we'll probably go forward, especially for the next 2 milestones, to kind of think about like this more buckets of work or so that we kind of like to box in some ways or so and make it like as a team effort where say like I'm either assign like multiple people or kind of just give people an epic where I say, hey, there's a bunch of stories. I'll let you come up with like the proper plan of doing this. Maybe also even like saying, okay, there's maybe a bigger issue that needs to be split up in multiple issues or so. But like just giving the people the autonomy or so and everybody here to say, okay, I think this is how we need to do it. And kind of diverging even like from the plans every now and then. This is like totally fine and acceptable. And this is cool because I really do, and I want to emphasize this, I really do trust each and every one of you in this team like very, very highly on kind of making the right calls and kind of knowing what to focus on. There's nothing why I wouldn't trust you. You all delivered like amazing results again and again over the last milestones year. So this is like just very much amazing. And I can just like second what Eric stated above, basically. If we can, I as a engineer manager can enable you and support you, I think then I'm very happy. Cool. And regarding like the next 2 milestones, like in general, there's like 2 axes for us like to plan work, right? On the one side, either like you have you know the work that you're going to work on, and then you just figure out how much time does it need. Like we say, okay, we want to do this. Let's see how long this takes. The other approach is, of course, it's like, okay, I have a time box. How much work can I fit into this time box? That makes sense. So in this case, now we're in the process of saying, okay, we have like a time box with like 14 of like 2 milestones. And I really want to use this like as a bigger picture in this case and not say, okay, like something needs to be done by milestone 1311. Like I really want to treat this as a box completely. And even as Eric mentioned, so like the goals for what we want to deliver is like very ambitious to a big degree. But this also means that so like I really want to give everybody the freedom to say, okay, I think this is the things I can do in this time frame. And if there's like something that's maybe in the issue that I think or Eric thinks so would be cool to be in there, if you say, okay, this does not make any sense or this is like absolutely not doable, that is totally fine and acceptable, right? Just like focus on the ambitious goal or more. So that's the thing. So what, yeah, overall, I think there will be fewer deliverables than usually, but they're just like a little higher expectancy or more very descriptive or what we expect or so, what is like planned to give everybody like this, the scene or so where we want to move. And then I trust everyone or so to think what is the right thing. Cool. Denise, you want to verbalize? No.
Yeah, I just like this idea. It's like
Smells like anarchy.
It's very anarchy, but I think like this actually might work out for our particular group because we are all highly professional individuals who surprisingly can work in the teams. So I think this actually might work out and might bring really good results. So I really appreciate this approach, Roman. Thank you.
Cool. Thank you for your feedback. And then like the final thing is create editor team day. Just want to highlight it again. It's coming up like on the 22nd, which is like the Monday. So we all should be quite refreshed after a long weekend, which is nice. The issue is open, so I didn't see too much activity on it yet or so, but I would totally love to have like some more ideas maybe or so till the end of this week to kind of formulate our plans, ideally beginning of next week as a team. And yeah, anything that you kind of think would be cool, just let us know. One thing I just want to highlight or so, and that's where I'm curious what people think. The hackathon kind of is something that's interesting. Paul brings up like maybe something like a game jam, which yeah, might be hard to kind of, yeah, I don't know. if anybody has like the time and resource to kind of jump in this or so, like Paul is definitely way above us with like his game jam experience. So I have no clue about this, to be honest. But like a hackathon in a way of saying like, okay, what if you want to do something on GitLab or so that is like not really related to the work that you do on a daily basis? Is there something in the product or so, or like any idea you want to spin off and try out? And so if this is something that's interesting and we could like structure the team day around kind of this functionality, just let me know in the comments. Cool. And with this, we actually kind of end up on time. But if there's anything else, any other questions, comments, other things we could like talk through?
Himanshu and Enrique, would you have time to jump on real quick after this call on the Zoom to talk about the tests?
Sounds good. We were going to meet for a pairing session, so we can use the same room.
Okay.
Cool. Well then, thank you everybody for this great meeting. And otherwise, you always feel free to ping anybody in the editor group chat. And I'll see you around. Have a great rest of the day.